This meeting is now being recorded. This meeting is now being recorded.
Yeah, hello everybody to another meeting of the XStepCafe. We are a pretty small group, and I think that's because the dial-in numbers in my website is not accurate anymore, and I promised to fix that, I know, but somehow I didn't do it, so I will do this today, I promise. So these are the wrong numbers here. Okay. Yes, so with me is Uwe Dittes from SAP, and Andreas Kerr from, again, Andreas? Merck. So Merck Pharmaceuticals in Darmstadt.
Yes.
And yeah, hello. And maybe you have some questions or some comments or anything you'd like to ask us, so you have our attention.
Actually, nothing special. I was just happy to make it today.
Yes. So okay. I mean, if you don't have anything you want to talk about, then we can just chat about some questions Uwe had via mail. Uwe, you want to take over, so then I stop sharing, and then you can show some things and explain what's it about?
Yes.
Great.
Sure.
Let's do that. Okay. Yeah. It's all yours.
Okay. Oh, wait a second. Hopefully you can see a Word document file.
Yes.
Okay.
Just make it a little bit wider, like
okay.
wide view.
Okay. So there are two topics that we might have a look at, and one thing is we recently had a discussion if it is possible to have a look at the XML change documents that are written in case we have some changes in Xstep trees. And for the Xstep trees that belong to master recipes, we already sent out a correction with a SAP note. This note is 1474343. And I just want to give you a glimpse at the report that allows us to display those XML data in a more user-friendly format. This node is available since Enhancement Package 3, it's release 603, and it's also incorporated in Enhancement Package 4 and 5, and also in Enhancement Package 6, which is out there soon. And this is one point. And another topic that I want to cover is we have had some questions. Situation is we use dynamic function calls, and we want to know or get an easy way how to know in which Xstep trees or Xstep nodes these dynamic function call modules are used. So this say will give you some ideas how such a reused list can be set up and implemented. Unfortunately, we don't have something similar in our SAP standard today. Similar situation would be if you want to know if you have any process messages assigned to Xsteps. How do you get the information which Xstep trees would be affected if you change anything in your, let's say, customer designed process messages? Okay, first of all, I will use this report. I have a SAP standard system, one of our queue systems that we use to check our stuff. Okay, and just want to show this. Okay, here we have the report, which is not that much coding currently, and most of the things that we offer are encapsulated by function modules and local routines. If you plan to adjust this report to your own needs, you can copy it and adapt it. I will just run it first time for our example. Okay, we have, let's say, a couple of selection parameters. One is you can also select the task list types. Remember, since in Xstep Package 3, it is also possible to assign Xstep trees to production orders and standard routings. And therefore, you can use also this report to show the change logs also for those routing types, let's say for those Xstep trees that belong to the more discrete routing types. Okay. Hopefully. Okay, we got it right. And then also we have, let's say, the possibility to narrow the searching for change documents where these selection parameters for date and time from to. And you can also transfer usernames and change numbers if available. Okay, so start it first. Then you see an XML, an ALV grid. This ALV grid is also extendable because it's based on an ALV grid XT. The node that I mentioned earlier just gives some information how you can provide additional columns and add additional functionality without the need to modify the complete stuff. Okay. Here we have, let's say, those elements that are part of where XML changelogs are written. And what you can also see here is the GUID of the node. And what I want to do is I want to compare, say, the two Xsteps that have description for all für alle Phasen. And what you can see also here, we have one which was changed by me quite almost a year ago at different points in time. And if you want to compare the changes, you can press this button. And then what we do is that we go through the XML file and interpret it stepwise. And this is, let's say, our first idea to display the value changes, and we have, let's say, also on the one hand the possibilities that content of parameters changes, so the parameter and the position of the parameter in, let's say, in the Xstep tree hierarchy remains. Then you have, let's only a value change, and it could also be that, let's say, we drag and drop an Xstep node from a lower part of the branch to a higher part of the branch. Then almost all of the parameters remain at their same values, but the position changed, and this is also indicated by the second column. And what we can easily see here, the old value, we had one, let's say, one local parameter was created the first time this Xstep tree node was created, this Xstep node, and then in the second stage, so in the second time I worked on this Xstep node, I added additional parameters and filled in additional information. This is shown up here, and because we did not have any changes concerning change numbers, we worked on this the same version, and this is the reason because why let's say the node IDs, the object IDs for the process instruction and the Xstep tree itself did not change. So, and this is quite easy. Just go back, and we can also check other tree nodes. And you see also here in the new version, a newer version, nodes were added. I think these are child nodes that are added. and also get here the node ID and the object ID. So if you are familiar with the technical terms, this is the NID, and this is the OID. Okay. And the XML files are written for all persistent objects. This means for Xstep3 root nodes, for Xstep nodes, for process instructions, and for reference nodes. And if we have a look at the process instructions that were changed, you can also compare those changes, and you see here, okay, we had this an item change, and so here the position of the process instruction, I think the characteristic had changed. Yeah. This was one idea to present the XML part. So now I'm just try to change to press this. Okay, here you can also export the change log, and I think the changes list. Okay, looks like here. So this is the list display of the XML changelog file, of one XML changelog file that I chose, and it just displays the content as a list. And if you want to export this XML file, this XML changelog, you can use this button. Okay, and I think we can also directly jump to the change documents in the task list. I haven't been there for a while, so I have to regret. And here you can also have a look at the change documents that have been created for the recipe group. This is standard functionality you might be familiar with. And you see also here, I did some manipulation today. So I created a new task list, new recipe with the recipe number X2, and changed the header text of the master recipe, and created additional operations and phases, and did some material component assignments. So this is existing standard functionality where we can navigate from our new report directly into. I don't know if this is quite familiar. I knew that some pharmaceutical customers from Japan, that they requested this report, the possibility of interpreting the XML changelog for a while, and as far as I prepared this correction, they are using it. Yeah, did not hear any complaints, so it might be working, and it might be working well, or they did not. Let's say don't use it at all, but I think they use it. Yeah, and so this might be also quite a good tool to show also compliance. And if someone asks you what are the changes in an Xstep tree that belongs to master recipe, then you get this. There's one major difference between Xstep trees that belong to routings and Xstep trees that are created in the for the Xstep repository, for the standard Xstep, or for process and production orders. And this issue is that the routing Xstep trees are so-called historical objects. So you have different versions. This means if you have an Xstep tree root node with a node ID, then you can have more than one entry for the same root node with different object IDs. So the versioning of Xstep data is done via creating new object IDs for the same node. And for the production process orders and standard Xsteps, this means we have only one version. So if you do changes in future for the data that you currently have assigned to the Xstep tree, then these changes are directly or immediately reflected in all standard Xsteps. This was also the reason why we introduced the approval of SXS versions via digital signatures to avoid that let's say that we can released as standard Xsteps are changed after being released. Yeah. Up to now, we don't have the possibility to enter change numbers in standard Xsteps repositories. This has been, we made some preparations a long time ago, but it wasn't realized until now. Are there any questions concerning this point?
We're a small group, so.
And Andreas, I don't know if you had used this report or if you have been familiar with this one.
No, honestly, not really.
Yeah.
To be really honest, no.
Yeah. From the perspective, would this help you a little bit if we talk about compliance or let's say track and trace?
Yeah. But in general, yes. I think it would be a help, but as mentioned earlier, we are not doing too much with Xsteps right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, but anyway, I mean, everything in terms of all these things would be a good help.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So hope that our other colleagues will have a look at the recording and might find this report helpful. Okay. So next thing that I would like to have a look at and to show you is the constellation. You use dynamic function calls or process messages within your Xstep trees and Xstep nodes, and in case you have use set function modules and you want to change those, you want to have an information which Xstep trees are affected. So first idea is to create a use list, and second idea would be, or the first idea would be to get the use list from SAP, which is currently unfortunately not the case. And the second thing is what steps have to be executed to get the information. The first thing that we need to know, now change the famous SE16, is in which of the multiple Xstep database tables are the information stored about the function module names and the message categories. And we have one central database table. This is same CMX, XS, DB, VS. VS is the abbreviation for value small. And this also carries parameter values and characteristic values up to 40 characters, and also GUIDs that indicate if you have a parameter value which exceeds more than 40 characters, like an HTML fragment, then here the GUID is stored, and you have another entry in two different tables called CMX XS DB VM for medium length and VL for the longer parts. Okay, in our system, I think there's a couple of entries. So, and I just want to show the one entry that I created today for the message category. What I did is I created a process instruction as part of an Xstep tree node that where I assigned a process message PI.com. So I want to create a comment, and the information that we get here is also the name of this domain, PPPI characteristic domain message category. As a value, we have the message category itself, and here is the object ID, the GUID of the corresponding process instruction. So I just copy it, And the next thing that I want to check is, I talk about historical objects and non-historical objects. Is this process instruction belonging to a historical Xstep tree? Means, is this object belonging to a master recipe or a standard routing? In case yes, then it could be that I have different object ID, meaning different versions for the same node. This is also something that I might consider during creation and programming where use lists. Okay, I just enter the object ID in this table, CMX XSDB HOBJ, and HOBJ stands for historical objects. Okay, what we can see here is we have a node, and the object ID and the node ID are the same. This means we have only one version, the initial version. The node type, N type, is I, meaning it's an instruction, process instruction. We don't use any change numbers and we don't delete it. So it's valid from today. We have the timestamp, and also we get an information that we don't have a previous version. So if you would have a second version, then the object ID good and the node ID good would be different. And if this would be the second version, then the previous OID field would be populated with this information. But I just created it today, did not use any change number, so we have only one version. Okay, now the interesting thing is, if I want to get an information which process orders or master recipes are affected by the changes, then I need to get the context of the Xstep tree. So what we now have to do is to climb up the Xstep tree hierarchy from the process instructions to the corresponding Xstep node up to the Xstep tree root node. And as far as we get the node ID from the Xstep tree root node, then we have a chance to identify which application this Xstep tree belongs to. And this I will just show you in small steps. So here we have, let's say, the information about the historical object, and we need to know the relation. So who's the parent of this instruction? And we know that instructions in Xstep trees at least have one Xstep node to which they are assigned to. And here I just add the child nit, because the instruction is the child node, and I want to get the parent information. Oh, sorry. Just edit again. Okay, and here we got the parent. This is the object ID of the parent. And to know if this is already the root node, I will just go back to the historical objects database table and enter this object ID. So what you see here is we have also same object ID and node ID, so the same version. The node type is S for step, and also was created today by me. So pick up this node ID and also look who's the parent of this node, hoping that we get the root. So also edit the child nit, and here we get the parent object ID, copy it, and just check, did we get the Xstep tree root node, or is there a step in between? And here we are. So also the node type is of type T, means this is the tree root node. And so we are at the top of our Xstep tree. And now we can use the CMX XSDB tree database table to find the information about the application. So, and the application here is MRC. This means master recipe. So we know, okay, we already know that's the historical one. So this is an Xstep tree for a master recipe. And then now we have to go into the database tables for the storing the context. And here I have to check.
And what does this timestamp here mean?
I think this is the creation timestamp. The timestamp where I did create the Xstep tree when it was first created and stored.
Okay.
Yeah, and also you have the possibility to archive Xstep trees together with master recipes, which is not, to be honest, not that easy because the Xstep information is currently archived via XML data archiving system, and if something is in place, then the Xstep trees can be archived together with the master recipe, and then you would get here an archive state and archive partitioning if the corresponding database entries aren't deleted by the deletion run of the after the archiving took place. Yeah. So just, I hope I remembered right. CPC CMX. So. Okay, here we got the contact table for recipe header, and also you can see we have a different database table storing the context information for routings. So if I have a look at this database table, I can enter the object ID, and here we are. And here we know the routing type, master recipe, which is quite obvious. We get the routing number and the routing group or routing alternative. So we execute, let's say, and if you now we know, okay, this a message with message category PICOM is used in this master recipe. So if you have let's say a set message category, you can build your own report and let's say prepare or output all the information to which master recipes or production process orders the Xstep trees, Xstep nodes are used, which contain information about process messages. You get everything that you require. We have, let's say, the same situation concerning these algorithms to distinguish between historical, non-historical objects, then identify or object IDs, get the node IDs. When we set up the so-called use list for the standard Xsteps. Andreas, I don't know if you have seen this or used this before.
Not yet, no.
Yeah, okay. Hopefully it works. So perhaps we can check if Arnie used something.
Okay.
Okay. And here it was the standard Xstep repository. We get this, we go to the context menu using right mouse click. We get this entry use list.
Okay.
Okay, now we have good examples. I'm just checking if I have find anything. No, I will just briefly switch to another system. Yeah, I hope to get more let's say, at least some more references. Okay. Oh, I'll log in German. Hopefully nobody. So kill me for this. No. So got the wrong one. Okay, just trying to check another client. See, I'm obviously very good prepared for this. Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong. You are saying if I create a new version of that Xstep, I automatically get a new ID.
You create to differentiate Normally you create, if you, let's say, if we talk about master recipes, correct?
Yeah.
If we, the first thing that we do is that we create an Xstep tree root node as far as the press is the create tree, and then we would build up the first version of this tree. So we have those objects that have the node ID, and the object ID is the same.
Yeah.
Now it could be that, or let's say it could be that we use change numbers,
Yeah.
and let's say enter the recipe maintenance with a change number with a valid from date in future, meaning
Yeah.
you plan to implement changes on the Xstep tree.
Yeah.
That should be active with the 1st of January next year.
Yeah.
Then everything that you change with the help of this change number will lead to objects that have, let's say, the same node ID. Let's say if I would change the description of an Xstep node and add a new one, then we have a new, let's say, object in the database which has the same node ID as the previous version, but it has a different object ID. And the idea is that you, with the help of the object ID, you are able to load the actual current valid version of the nodes that belong to the Xstep tree at your the explosion date you have in the process order and in the master recipe.
Okay, so only the changed objects, they get really
Yeah.
an ID.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. And
So we don't
yeah.
we don't duplicate
Sorry.
we don't duplicate anything. So this would not really make sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah, perfect. And my second question is, there is only the valid from date plus the version number. So that means there is no valid to date.
Concerning correct. If we talk about let's say not the standard Xstep versions, for standard Xstep versions we have, let's say, this validity interval defined valid from valid to, and for, let's say, for the standard for Xstep node elements, like instructions that belong to historical Xstep trees, we store the valid from date. And if you have new versions, or let's say if you want to load an Xstep tree, so let's have an example. We have different versions of an Xstep tree that belongs to master recipe, and I just load the master recipe.
Isn't that also the same for recipes? When you talk about valid from date, there's also no valid to date, so it's consistent to that as well.
So this has to be, the validity period has to be calculated by the system. Yeah, so there's no difference.
There's always a valid object available. So you cannot really say, okay, now this is there's from a certain point in time there's no valid object there.
Okay, now just checking if we have something that we used before of famous. Andreas, do you know our famous SXS library?
Yeah, this is something I know.
Yeah, great. Okay, so we have this very.
So Andreas, what is your plan on Xsteps? Do you plan to move over to Xsteps or?
Personally, yes, but it's also a little bit dependent on our IT department on how they see that. I mean, it's also especially a question with all the historical things, and we are using for sure the ECN, also the engineering change number to change bombs and master recipes. So there's always a requirement that we can display past status in orders in master recipes and bombs, and also future changes or future status in these objects. So that was not there for a very long time, let's say, with the Xsteps. So there were some voices saying, if we cannot control how the PI sheet, for instance, look like, we cannot go with Xsteps. So there were some restrictions on that. And so this is why I'm saying all these things which go in that direction were use list showing, I don't know, as I said, past status, future status, and all these things, or that report what you presented before, this is all going in the right direction and will hopefully help a little bit in all the discussions. So if you ask me personally, I would rather go with Xsteps today than tomorrow, but as I said, I'm not alone.
Yeah. So, okay, what I just wanted to show is the by use list. I just mark this standard Xstep, and this standard Xstep is referenced in different applications. And here we also just scrolling down a little bit. Most of the things that we see here are manufacturing orders. So we also added this order category information as far as we extended the Xstep usage for the discrete industry. And the nice thing is I can directly navigate to the corresponding manufacturing order. So this is I think this is a process order, and also have a look at the Xstep tree where this SXS is used to. Hopefully you can see this. Okay. Go to check. This is a checklist. What you don't have is the possibility to directly jump into the Xstep tree of this process order. So we just jump into the let's say the corresponding application that created the Xstep tree. What's also yeah?
Probably it's a stupid question or not, I don't know. Would it be possible to say, if I would know that I have, let's say, future changes to a master recipe, would it be possible to display today a master recipe with all the changes done within the Xsteps valid from 1st of January or something?
So you would like to have all the future changes by today?
Yeah.
Visible?
Let's say you have performed changes becoming valid from beginning of next year.
I think the question is if you enter the recipe maintenance with a certain key date.
Yeah, exactly.
Then also the when you for example when you simulate the Xsteps, then it should take that key date. Does it? I think it does.
Exactly, it does it. It's one of the metadata that we inherit from the master recipe to the Xstep trees as Xstep maintenance.
And is this the same if I would display things in the past? For instance, if I would display a master recipe with the key date, I don't know, 15th of June 2011, would I then see the status at that time?
Yes.
Okay. Also with all the Xsteps?
Also with all the Xsteps. Yeah.
Okay.
This is one of the things that you have to make sure that you already get the valid versions. So if you would not get, let's say, the valid Xstep tree, then this is surely an error, but I haven't heard of this before. So relevant is, as Arne rightly said, is the key date that we enter as we jump into the master recipe maintenance, and then we see all, let's say, the valid Xstep objects with the, let's say, the release or the version that is valid for this key date, where the key date is, say, lying in between. What I just want to show is also we have here the possibility. This this standard Xstep is also referenced in other SXS, and what you can also do is to mark this entry, and normal within a certain period of time. Yeah, great. Then you get it. Let's say the standard. This is an SXS reference node that refers to this standard Xstep. So they look like look quite the same, but here we have another standard Xstep that also references this standard Xstep. And what is also quite important, it could be, so here we have a nested one. So this SXS is used in this SXS. As far as you change this SXS, it also has an impact, can also have an impact on this SXS. And therefore we have, let's say, also we are not searching for the first explosion level like here. So this is quite a child, in a child reference to this SXS. We can go to deeper levels. And this is also meant here. If you have here we have a master recipe, and this master recipe, I'm pretty sure it uses an SXS reference node pointing to this standard Xstep, and therefore also we have, let's say, a way used entry for the original one. And also, as you can see here, we have also second explosion level. This means that our original standard Xstep that we marked and where we execute the way used list is also, let's say, used in a nested way. So this is quite fine, and we also did some performance improvements. And Andreas, if you like, if anybody's interested in, I can let's say forward the coding parts. And if we talk about this algorithm in identifying, let's say, the correct, let's say, the application context, this is also something that we have to identify as far as we create this reuse list. It will be the same algorithm if you would search for process instruction categories, function modules, or anything like that. Okay. So one last thing that I want to point your interest to. Now to go back to SE 16, I talked about the small values, and there's one thing. So there are quite more than I expect. I think, hoping that we get this HTML. Let's find some entries. Okay, I'm looking for. Oh, see, great. I just did a search for parameter value, which was assigned to a characteristic. This is, I think, a copy of PBPI fragment HTML. And fragment HTML means that we surely have, in most cases, parameter values with more than 40 characters. And what you see here is that here's linkage to the corresponding process instruction where this parameter is used. Well, here we have also a GUID, which is the value for this small parameter. And now to get an information, what's the content of this HTML fragment part, then we go first to either the value medium database table and enter the GUID. So we find the entry, which just shows you the parameter value, and here it is. So the original value was assigned to this parameter is this HTML part where we have a table information with cell padding, cell spacing, and also I think the column headers. So if you are searching for, especially for long text, or perhaps they did some changes, then you can also use this linkage between the volume medium and volume large tables and the volume small tables to identify the corresponding application and via the Xstep tree and identify what might be affected by changes. So one last thing that I want to check, I think value long, we don't have not much that in, got 600. So I haven't found anything in our system. Okay, there's also HTML fragments, I think. Yeah, quite long part. Now do the cross-check to which characteristic this belongs to. So I can just mark the GUID, go to the volume small database table, and I think, oh great, don't get it as an import parameter. Tedious job. Try to check how fast our system is. Okay, so this would also be something that, because we don't have the can use a standard search. This is something that we can has also to be programmed, but it's manageable, and we also know we can use the search for the GUID. Find it. Okay, and here we see.
Okay,
yeah.
I think we're at the end of our scheduled time. Maybe if you have something else, we can also shift it to the next time.
Okay.
Thanks a lot for your time, and this is really, I think, really great that you show such detailed information to the community here. And yeah, I will put the recording, of course, on the web. And as usual, the next the next meeting will be in about 2 months, beginning of January. Probably not the first week, maybe the second week. I will put it on the blog, the exact date as usual.